Good late night evening to everybody. I said I'd be back. I've got all kinds of stuff. I'm glad I took a little break because a lot of stuff happened in that time frame. So I was able to get newer and better content, um, which is good and bad, however you want to put it. But that being said, we've got a variety today. Clintons, we're going to talk about. We've got a Sheriff Grady conference. We've got ICE. We've got ICE and Iran protests. We've got all types of crazy stuff going on in the world. Elon Musk and Starlink and Iranian protest. I mean, it just doesn't end. So, yeah, we should have a long Ryan. Get your booty in here, Bubba. But yeah, we should be having a good one tonight. So get ready to tune in. I'm gonna start with kind of like I'm gonna work my way into it. Iran's probably gonna go last this time around. So we're gonna start with the story. Probably all of us, just for the fact that and we haven't new as in It's new as in it happened today, which is Billy Clinton didn't go to his little Congress meeting today. So let's see what happened here and let's go. Hit the like, share, subscribe, and
President, he did not show up today. We will move next week in the House Oversight Committee markup to hold former President Clinton in contempt of Congress.
Contempt proceedings against a former president. Now, Bill Clinton was scheduled to sit down with the House Oversight Committee today as part of its Jeffrey Epstein investigation. That's certainly what the committee wanted. CNN's Annie Greer is on Capitol Hill. Annie, this is an extraordinary moment that I'm sure will lead to several more extraordinary moments in the coming week or two. But what we just saw from the chairman is precisely what was predicted in a very lengthy, very hot statement that the former president and his wife, the former Secretary of State and First Lady, just released a letter to James Comer. Explain.
So, Dana, what we're headed towards next is potentially lengthy and even unprecedented legal battle now that Comer has announced that he's going to move forward with contempt proceedings against both Bill and Hillary Clinton. Now, Hillary has one more option for her deposition date tomorrow, but from the letter that Bill and Hillary Clinton sent to Comer directly this morning, they lay out exactly why they are not planning to appear for their depositions. And this is after months of back and forth, Anna, between the Clintons' legal attorneys and the Oversight Committee, where the Clintons have maintained that these subpoenas are not valid, that they are willing to provide written testimony, and that the committee has even granted this option of written testimony to at least 7 of the other witnesses that they've subpoenaed in this investigation. So why not grant them to the Clintons here? And in this letter that you mentioned that Bill and Hillary Clinton wrote to Comer, I want to read for you a piece of it that just shows the stakes that both the former president and First Lady and Secretary of State understand here. They say, quote, "Every person has to decide when they have seen or had enough and are ready to fight for this country, its principles, and its people, no matter the consequences. For us, now is that time." Now, Comer maintains he still has a lot of questions for the Clintons. He wants to know about Epstein's relationship with them, but Bill Clinton has never been accused of any wrongdoing, and we are now going to see how far House Republicans are going to take this.
Yeah, we sure will. Thank you so much.
He has not. Yes, he has.
Bill Clinton.
Did they just say he has never been accused of any wrongdoings? Really? He got impeached for getting a you-know-what in the White House. He's got, come on, guys. Come on.
Clinton, the former president, and the former First Lady and Secretary of State, also, in addition to that letter, sent declarations of what they do and do not know to the chairman.
If they could name the
summary in this
Lolita
letter, 'cause it's pretty
Express
long.
Billy
You
Clinton, they
accepted
would.
the least from those who know the most, but demand the most from those who know the least. To stay, you can't complete your work without speaking to us is simply bizarre. And then, just as Annie was saying, the rallying cry that they have written in this to Democrats and to Americans who they know want to see their leaders fight. They're clearly providing a roadmap and a place to rally behind.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting decision. We obviously saw when we did get some Epstein files last month, the White House, the Justice Department made very clear they want to focus on the Clintons. That was a big part of the first initial release. We can expect now the House to try and continue this moving forward. I think that was really the point of all of this.
Republicans on the House Oversight Committee point out that last year's vote to subpoena Clinton and his wife Hillary, the former Secretary of State, was bipartisan.
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a giant open universe where you.
So no one's accusing Bill Clinton of any wrongdoing. We just have questions, and that's why the Democrats voted along with Republicans to subpoena Bill Clinton. This is the amount of preparation that went into this deposition today. These were the questions that we were prepared to ask. We've communicated with President Clinton's legal team for months now, giving them opportunity after opportunity.
Hillary Clinton's deposition is set for tomorrow, but she won't be appearing either. In a letter to Committee Chair Comer explaining their no-shows, the Clintons' lawyer says, quote, subpoenas themselves are nothing more than a ploy to attempt to embarrass political rivals, as President Trump has directed. Let's turn now to CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Honig, a former federal prosecutor. All right, Ellie, the Clintons' argument here that the subpoenas are not related to a valid legislative purpose. What do you make of that?
Well, here's the problem, Brianna. The Clintons have taken a risk in the way they've gone about this. They could have gone to court weeks ago when they received these subpoenas and made precisely that argument. And maybe they will go to court in the future and maybe they will win. But as we sit here right now, what we have is a valid subpoena from Congress that says you are to appear on today's date. We have Bill Clinton no showing, and we do not have a court order saying this subpoena is invalid. Now, it seems what's going to happen from here, if Congress does pursue contempt, is Bill Clinton will then go into courts and challenge the subpoena. But by waiting to do that, he's taking the risk of being held in contempt first.
So they also say they're willing to certify their draft declarations. That is what the statement from the lawyer says. They say that there are other subpoenaed witnesses who have not had to appear in person. What do you make of that? I mean, are those witnesses facing different circumstances than the Clintons?
Yeah, all of those are fair points. And the Clintons' core argument is that this subpoena does not have a valid legislative purpose. Congress is saying, well, we need to hear from the Clintons because we're considering new legislation having to do with sex trafficking. And the Clintons are arguing that that's not a valid purpose. There's no connection between what the Clintons might know about Jeffrey Epstein and some sort of future legislation. The point, though, is in the end, it's up to Congress how they want to treat witnesses. Sometimes, if you're a member of Congress, you accept written declarations. Sometimes you accept behind closed doors depositions, and sometimes you insist on public testimony. Congress really has the power there. So if Clinton's legal team is able to get together with Congress and work out some sort of mid-ground, some sort of agreement and arrangement, then they can go with that. But ultimately, the Clintons are not the ones in the power position here. Congress is the ones with the subpoena power, and Republicans control Congress. And as you noted earlier, this was a unanimous, not just bipartisan, but unanimous vote to subpoena the Clintons.
So where does this go from here? If Congress can pursue a contempt of Congress proceeding here, what happens?
So Congress now has an important strategic decision to make. If they choose to go to contempt first, which seems like they're going to do, they do run the risk that the Clintons then go to court and get a ruling that the subpoenas were invalid. If that happens, it undercuts, probably ends any contempt. The other alternative is Congress can wait till this plays out in the court. And if Congress wins, if the subpoena is deemed to be valid and the Clintons still do not comply, then they can go seek contempt. But important to know, if and when Congress does issue contempt, the next step is the case then goes over to the Justice Department, which has the ability at that point to bring criminal contempt charges. That's been done in the last administration. We saw criminal contempt charges against Roger Stone and others. Peter Navarro went to jail because of that. So that is an option. I know it's an extreme option, but the way this works is Congress finds in contempt first, then it gets referred over to DOJ, and it'll ultimately be Pam Bondi's call whether she wants to pursue criminal contempt if we get to that point.
It's important, Ellie, to note that authorities have not accused Bill Clinton of wrongdoing at this point, right? But as we saw the release of a lot of Epstein documents, we also saw photos, a lot of photos that included Bill Clinton, including some where he is in photos with a woman in at least 2 cases where their face is redacted, raising questions if he's in a photo with a woman who is a known or possible victim, right? And that sort of challenges, I think, what we knew, at least publicly, coming from his spokesperson. So what kind of information would members of Congress want to know from Bill Clinton with that in mind?
Well, I think that's precisely what's animating this dispute here. It is important to note there's a certain stigma to getting a subpoena. A subpoena does not necessarily mean anyone did anything wrong. Witnesses get subpoenas because they have relevant information. But let's be real. If Bill Clinton is to appear for a deposition, I promise you members of that committee, Republicans, are going to slide those very photos in front of Bill Clinton and demand specifics about what he was doing there, who else is in those photos, why he was there. So I don't think the Clintons are under any illusion that that's not going to happen. And I would speculate that that's exactly why they're fighting against this so far. If they were just bystanders on a corner and witnessed a traffic accident, I don't think they would have any resistance to going in and testifying. But this is going to be ugly politically for Bill Clinton any way you slice it.
Ultimately, do you think he'll have to answer those questions?
I mean, it could be that he is compelled by the courts. The courts could say this is a valid subpoena. If that happens, then yes, Bill Clinton will have to answer questions. Again, his lawyers are going to push for some sort of arrangement involving written answers or closed door testimony. But ultimately, the courts will resolve this. And if the courts find this is a valid subpoena and it's related to some sort of valid legislative purpose, then yes, he will have to answer questions. The fact that he's a former president, Hillary Clinton's a former Secretary of State, is not going to change the calculus whatsoever here. There's no privilege that survives that long after the fact.
Ellie Honig, thank you so much.
Is that all?
These gloves can withstand 1,340 degrees Fahrenheit flames, broken glass, and razor-sharp blades because they're built from military.
Sorry, guys, I got so tied up in the chat that I lost the video, and I was reading your thing. It was nice, bro. I got something real nice today, too. I was very, very happy for. I'm not going to lie.
Comes out
there you go.
Of Capitol Hill. Today, the House Oversight Committee says Bill and Hillary Clinton did not appear for scheduled closed-door depositions in its Epstein-related inquiry, while the Clintons' lawyers argue the subpoenas are legally invalid and that written declarations should suffice. Fox's Bill Malugin reporting on this. Let's watch.
I'm going to note for the record that former President Clinton is not present.
Former President Bill Clinton, a no-show on Capitol Hill today. The chair he would have sat in, empty.
As a result of Bill Clinton not showing up for his lawful subpoena, we will move next week in the House Oversight Committee markup to hold former President Clinton in contempt of Congress.
Despite being under a federal subpoena, Clinton failed to appear for a scheduled deposition with the House Oversight Committee as part of its Jeffrey Epstein investigation.
I think it's a defiance of Congress for them to defy the subpoena. I mean, I think by definition, it's a contempt of Congress.
Hillary Clinton is also subpoenaed to give her deposition tomorrow. But in a letter, Clinton's lawyers call the subpoenas, quote, invalid and legally unenforceable.
Why aren't they in there? Anybody else in America would be shamed to the point of coming in, but the Clintons have just been given they're just given a pass.
Also not in attendance today, any of the Democrats on the committee.
Not a single Democrat showed up today. Not a single Democrat.
We asked Oversight Committee Democrat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett why she wasn't there.
Congresswoman, why didn't any House Oversight Democrats show up to the deposition for Bill Clinton today, ma'am? Why didn't you show up, ma'am?
At least one Democrat thinks those in her party and the Clintons should have come.
It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican. You should show up. Everything should be public.
And the House will have to vote to approve holding former President Bill Clinton in contempt of Congress for not showing up today. If it passes the House with a simple majority vote, it then gets referred to DOJ. It will then be up to AG Pam Bondi to decide if she wants to prosecute. Reporting on Capitol Hill, Bill Malugin, Fox News.
Planning to publish your book? You could reach 3 billion more readers. If you've written a book and you're thinking about...
All right, we appreciate Bill's reporting a live look at the White House and a live look at Capitol Hill on this Tuesday evening. Let's bring in legal analyst John Day. He's standing by here. John, what makes a congressional subpoena for a deposition legally enforceable or not enforceable?
Well, thanks for having me. This sets up such an interesting fight. When have we seen this before? When Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro in a previous administration faced the same issue, and they were held in contempt of Congress, and they did prison time. Is that what we're setting up Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton for? I mean, it's a challenge. It's a direct challenge to the authority of the Congress. And as we've seen in the Bannon and Navarro cases, people do go to prison for making these decisions. So what makes this an enforceable document, a piece of paper, is that it's a subpoena from Congress, and you choose to ignore that at your peril, as we've seen before.
Committee leaders are now talking about moving forward contempt of Congress after the non-appearance. John, what's the most realistic enforcement route after a contempt vote happens in a high-profile case like this?
Right. Well, it gets kicked over to the Department of Justice, and I think we know most likely the procedure after that. I think it would be an aggressive prosecution by this DOJ. But it's a choice that the Clintons made to ignore these subpoenas. It looks like Hillary Clinton's not going to appear as well. And that's a battle, that they apparently want to fight. But again, people have gone to prison for making that decision.
Bill Clinton posting this on social media. I believe Hillary sent this out as well. I won't read the entire thing verbatim. Quote that sticks out: "This is not about right or left. It's about right and wrong." The Clintons, John, have submitted sworn statements denying wrongdoing and saying that their contact with Epstein was limited. They are framing the committee's demands as politically motivated rather than investigationally necessary. How does the law distinguish between a legitimate legislative purpose and a process that court might view as improper or purely political?
Well, the deference is always going to be to Congress, essentially. I mean, you can make the same argument that previous efforts to get people under subpoena, and as I brought up Bannon and Navarro, ended in prison sentences. And so you've got a direct challenge to the authority of Congress. And you've even got Democrats in Congress saying the Clintons should show up, everybody should show up, be transparent. So there's obviously a split along those lines about whether this was an appropriate procedure or not. But at the end of the day, who's going to win? I think courts are going to be very deferential to the congressional power to bring people in front of them. And you can argue that it's a political proceeding, but at the same time, if you don't show up, you don't get to make that argument in front of that body.
So what are you tracking from here? What should we be watching out for in the days and weeks ahead with this story?
How is it going to unfold? I think we've seen in the past that Congress will hold them in contempt, make a referral to the Department of Justice. What's the Department of Justice going to do? I think you're going to see a prosecution unless there's some type of a deal struck. You know, the Clintons have said, well, we've provided written statements. We're willing to testify in open public hearings. And that may be a distinction that there might be an off-ramp there if Congress decides, why not have an open public hearing about this? But at the end of the day, it's a risky call because we've seen how this has played out in the past.
All right. We do appreciate John Day, legal analyst, coming on with us. We'll be checking in soon. Thanks.
Thanks.
So the House Oversight Committee sending this out today, saying Bill Clinton ignored a lawful subpoena. We're now initiating contempt proceedings. Tomorrow, Hillary Clinton gets her chance. Show up at 10 a.m. or face the same fate. There's nothing to hide. We expect to see her. No one is above the law. By the way, we have been seeing plenty of reporting to suggest that it's not expected that Hillary Clinton will show tomorrow. We'll have to wait and see exactly how things play out. Speaking of the Oversight Committee, the chairman of the committee, James Comer, speaking in front of cameras earlier today. Let's watch.
Everyone knows by now Bill Clinton did not show up. And I think it's important to note that this subpoena was voted on in a bipartisan manner by this committee. This wasn't something that I just issued as chairman of the committee. This was voted on by the entire committee in a unanimous vote of the House Oversight Committee to subpoena former President Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Now, Hillary Clinton's supposed to show up tomorrow. We'll see what happens there. But with respect to the former president, he did not show up today. One reason I think most Americans want President Clinton to answer some questions is because he visited the White House. Jeffrey Epstein visited the White House 17 times while Bill Clinton was president. I've been in Congress 9 years. I think I've been to the White House 9 times in 9 years. Epstein was in the White House double the amount of time that I was under one president. And then we know that Bill Clinton flew on Epstein's plane somewhere around 27 times after the presidency. So no one's accusing Bill Clinton of any wrongdoing. We just have questions. And that's why the Democrats voted along with Republicans to subpoena Bill Clinton. Not a single Democrat showed up today. Not a single Democrat. The ones that have press conferences on the Capitol steps and talk about how they're trying to get justice for the victims and all that. It just seems like they only care about questioning Republicans. And we've had a former Trump cabinet secretary, Acosta, in for a grilling. We had Bill Barr, former attorney general, in for a grilling. But for whatever reason, President Clinton didn't show up, and the Democrats on the committee don't seem to have a problem. This is the amount of preparation that went into this deposition today. These were the questions that we were prepared to ask. We've communicated with President Clinton's legal team for months now, giving them opportunity after opportunity to come in, to give us a date, and they continue to delay to the point where we had no idea whether they're going to show up today or not. I think it's very disappointing. As a result of Bill Clinton not showing up for his lawful subpoena, which again was voted on unanimously by the committee in a bipartisan manner, we will move next week in the House Oversight Committee markup to hold former President Clinton in contempt of Congress.
We don't expect Hillary to show tomorrow. We'll let you know as soon as we do know.
Like, share, subscribe. I do not expect the Clintons to show up whatsoever. This was not a topic I really wanted to cover because it was so many short videos and not much information. And it's funny because all the screaming people that wanted it aren't even here. It's hilarious.
Off the record, you can't talk about it. So, but I will say that it was bipartisan, the effort to bring Clintons in here. It wasn't a partisan effort. I think that something needs to be made clear. And, there's been questions surrounding the Clintons since cocaine dealings in Arkansas. I mean, it's just a history of this bunch, their corrupt nature. So I think at some point we should have justice and we should bring them in. But I just don't think they got the guts to do it.
What do you make of
Bro, I kicked myself out of the studio, dude. Dang it. So where's my thing now? Where am I at? I'm over here. Okay. Now I was at the Comer thing. All right, let's go back to that. I don't know how long this is or what it is, but I don't even want to talk about this no more, to be honest. I'm just going to do this one because shit was just boring. Honestly. We all know he's not going to court. You know? We know exactly what's up. Ryan, you weren't gonna say nothing while I was gone that whole time? Ah.
We had a wonderful,
Still running around.
great people in Detroit. They're mostly in the car business, and we're setting records in manufacturing. It's going very well. I think people appreciated what I had to say in terms of the numbers. So we're very happy about that. I'm going back to the White House now. We're going to look at the whole situation that's going on in Iran. Really bad stuff. And Minnesota's going to have to take care of itself for a little while. We have tremendous theft and fraud going on in that state because you have an incompetent governor, grossly incompetent governor, and a corrupt governor. But we'll straighten that out. But Iran is on my mind when I see the kind of death that is happening over there, we think. So we're going to get some accurate numbers. I'll have it in about 20 minutes. We'll get some accurate numbers as to what's happening with regard to the killing. The killing looks like it's significant, but we don't know yet for certain. I'll know within 20 minutes. So, and we'll act accordingly.
How can you ensure that U.S. airstrikes, if it comes to that, will have the result of protecting the protesters?
Well, you never know, do you? You never know. Do you think it's... So far, my track record's been excellent, but you never know.
Do you think it's going to be something kinetic like that, or more like cyber? Or
well, I can't tell you that. I know exactly what it would be. We have to make a decision. But I can't be, obviously, I can't be telling you.
Timeline?
So Jamie Dimon said today that it's not a great idea to be chipping away at the Fed's independence. Do you think Jamie Dimon's wrong about that?
Yeah, I think it's fine what I'm doing. We have a bad Fed person. He was extended by Biden. And yeah, I think he's wrong. I think it's wrong. He's done a bad job. We should have lower rates. Jamie Dimon probably wants higher rates. Maybe he makes more money that way.
Mr. President, Jamie Dimon also was talking about the 10% credit card. The House Speaker said that it could have negative side effects if it was imposed through Congress. Are you concerned about that? Have you talked to that?
No, I'm not. I think that people that are paying 28% interest should be protected. We're talking about for a one-year period, but when you have a bank, whether it's Jamie Dimon or anybody else, charging people 28, 32%, 30%, 31%, one case 35%. No, I'll help those people. That's all right. It's a 1 year, 10%. Let the people have a break.
In your speech, you said that you're going to be cutting off funding for sanctuary cities on February 1st.
That's right.
What kind of funding?
You'll see. It'll be significant.
On healthcare, is there something that you can do with the insurance companies to bring down premiums like you're doing with credit cards?
I'm going to meet with the insurance companies, but I want the money to go directly to the people. It's very simple. Into a healthcare savings account, but directly to the people so the people can buy their own health care.
On Thursday will be the 6-year anniversary of you signing the Phase 1 trade deal with China, the signature on it. Would that deal open Chinese markets to U.S. goods? It protected intellectual property. Can we get back to that?
Yeah, we can. We can do it very well with China. I have a great relationship with President Xi, as you obviously know. We're doing really well. We're making a lot of money with China.
Can you open their markets to U.S. goods?
I think so, yeah. I think it's going to happen.
Iran says that in the instance of U.S. strikes against U.S. assets in the Middle East, what do you say to U.S. service members about why it's worth the risk to intervene in Iran?
Yeah, Iran said that the last time I blew him up with the nuclear capability, which they don't have any longer. So Iran said that the last time. They better behave.
Intel stock is really high after you invested. Are you going to invest more in Intel?
I like it. So, well, I don't know about Intel, but I'll invest more in other things.
What other companies?
As you know, Intel came to see me. They needed help. And I said, I'll help you, but I want 10% of your company to go to the United States of America. And we made, because of that deal, tens of billions of dollars. The stock went very up and very high, and we made tens of billions of dollars. They walked away and they gave us a lot of money, but they did a great deal for themselves because their stock has gone up. As soon as we went in, Apple went in, NVIDIA went in, a lot of smart people went in, they followed us. So yeah, we're doing that. We've done other of those deals. In Alaska, we did a deal where we got a big piece of a company where we were helping them to get a road. We're the only ones that could have done it. And we said, we want something out of the company for the United States of America, okay? So I believe in that. We have some other ones that we're looking at. I believe in that. If it's up to us, if they can't do it without us, and then I say, well, we'll do it. If you were a private guy, you'd say, what do we get for doing it? Now, I don't want anything for myself. I want our country to be rich as hell. But with Intel, we made billions and billions of dollars, right?
So, Mr. President, on Iran, do you have a message for the leaders currently of Iran?
Yeah, the message is they've got to show humanity. They've got a big problem, and I hope they're not going to be killing people. And I'm going to have a report very soon. It would seem to me that they have been badly misbehaving, but that is not confirmed.
So you mentioned the 1980 hostage rescue effort that ended in disaster.
Well, it was a disaster for Jimmy Carter. They had all sorts of problems, and the helicopters were crashing and everything. You know what it was? The exact opposite of Venezuela. Do you agree with that? Do you agree? As a reporter, who are you with? Who are you with?
I'm with the Financial Times, sir.
Oh, good. What's a nice paper?
So are you committing not to sending U.S. troops into Iran?
Why would I tell you that? Why would I?
Mr. President,
I don't talk about military strategy with a reporter, you know? Even though I do like the Financial Times.
are you consulting with our allies regarding Iran? What are they telling you, and why do you think the Iranian?
I'm not going to tell you
why
what
do you
they're
think the
telling me.
Iranian leadership? Why do you think the Iranian leadership continues to defy you, Mr. President?
Do you think they are?
Well,
it's only been a couple of days.
They continue to kill protesters.
Well, they said that about Venezuela too. You know, it's only been a couple of days. They haven't defied me. They haven't done anything, as far as we're concerned. But it looks like they're killing a lot of people. But it has not been confirmed. I'll know very soon.
Greenland, sir, the premier of Greenland said today, we prefer to stay with Denmark. Do you see that as the
Who
final
said
word?
that?
The premier of Greenland.
Well, that's their problem. That's their problem. I disagree with them. I don't know who he is. Don't know anything about him. That's going to be a big problem for him.
Do you want to see democracy in Iran?
Ideally, you'd like to see it, but what we want to see is we don't want to see people killed. And we want to see a little bit of freedom for these people. These people have been living in hell for a long time. You know, that used to be a hell of a country. I have friends that used to invest in Iran, and they did well with their investments. It was a great place. The people were great. Even the leadership was good. And now it's living in hell. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, here we go. Hit the like, share, subscribe. We're gonna get into something a little different before we go ahead and pop into the politics. Let's have a little kickback to a brand new Sheriff Grady. Crazy. Looks like a crazy story to me. Let's go.
Outstanding. General, thank you for being here today and agreeing to do this press release with us. We're going to have speakers today. Of course, the general is going to speak as soon as I give a quick overview, and then Brad McVeigh, the statewide prosecutor. And after that will be Vaden Pollard. He's the deputy commissioner for FDLE, and there'll be Rob Mateo, who is a retired detective from the sheriff's office, and he's currently the president of the Florida Gang Association. And then there's Christy Dolan from Department of Corrections. But let me talk about Hernando Thompson. He's 40 years of age. His nickname is T-Murda. Does that tell you anything? He is the head of the sex, money, murder gang for the state of Florida. So we did a wiretap. We called it Catching Stain. Now Stain is rank. And our goal was to take down the sex, money, murder hierarchy. And that's what we all did together. Statewide prosecutor, FDLE, the sheriff's office worked together, and we did this wiretap. This is the man at the top of the pyramid. Now, this T3, as we call it, or wire intercept, allowed us to seize 4,787 communications that talked about criminal conduct. In addition to that, we served 6 search warrants. We seized $1.5 million in drugs. We seized 18 firearms. We seized ballistic armor. We had one event where the suspects received permission up the chain of command to commit a murder and were after our victim to murder him. The only reason he was not murdered was because the victim got away from them during the middle of the night. And by the way, we found the murder to be victim the next day or a couple of days later and locked him up on some charges we had in order to keep him alive until this investigation could be completed. So we ended up arresting a suspect who was to be the victim of a murder. It was ordered by Team Murder's team. If it weren't for the hard work of the statewide prosecutor's office and our awesome attorney general at the time who worked with us, and now our current attorney general, this wouldn't be possible. But you know, you see the rolling stuff on him. But look, I just want you to get a picture of his criminal record. This is a bad man, and he needs to go to prison for a long time. And I'll stop there because I don't want to get in the way of the attorney general and our team that's going to give you the details of the magnificent work that occurred. General?
EVE Online is a
Thank you. It's great to be here with America's Sheriff. I got to tell you, I continue to be perplexed when I see ongoing criminal activity in this jurisdiction. You'd think by now people know what they're looking at if they come here. If you want to engage in dangerous, violent, gang-related activity, do not do it in Florida. We're going to take you down. But most importantly, do not do it in Polk County. I mean, are you nuts? So this is a great way to start the year. You have a notorious gang leader here who ran a large-scale operation, 12 other individuals arrested in this case, and he was directing everything from robbery to drive-by shootings to, you know, some of his people were pointing guns at children where they were extorting and making threats and ultimately trying to get their way. We're not going to tolerate that here in Florida. He's looking at 5 lifetime sentences. Our prosecutors in court will be pushing to ensure that he does not have an opportunity to ever be released again. We want him behind bars for the rest of his life. We want to send a message. If you engage in this type of violence, if you run drugs and guns and violent behavior into communities, you are going to pay the price. We're going to put everybody on notice. If you engage in this type of violent behavior, you are going to pay the price. You are going to be behind bars for the rest of your life. We're going to protect our families at all costs. The affidavit in this case with the charging documents was over 250 pages, over 17 counts included. So, you know, the short of it is this was a bad dude, a violent guy, and we're going to do what needs to be done to protect our community at all costs. So I thank law enforcement. He got away with a lot till he ran into the sheriff's office here. I looked at the press conference the sheriff did a couple of years ago. When the arrests were made, he said, you know, I don't want to see this guy
breathe another free breath of fresh air again. But Sheriff, he's going to have at least one on the bus going from the jail to the prison, but rest assured, he will not be breathing fresh air outside of a Department of Corrections facility. I want to thank the investigators for working on this and the prosecutors. Prosecutors go toe-to-toe with some of the most dangerous people, and ultimately, they're often the last faces that these violent offenders see before they go away. And that's why I proposed at the legislature this year that our prosecutors get the special risk retirement benefits. That's early and more retirement. These are not the highest paying jobs in the world. They're tough jobs, but they are the last line of defense between us and dangerous people that want to hurt our families and the way of life that we've built here in the free state of Florida. So we rounded out my first year, 2025, we rounded out with a bang. It was a record year for the office. We participated in over 1,300 child predator arrests. I think a few hundred of those came right here with Sheriff Judd. We secured almost 400 criminal convictions with sentences up to over 1,700 years. So it was a big first year out of the gate, but we're only going to get even tougher on crime. And it's no secret why Florida has record crime lows, over 50-year crime lows, and they continue to get lower because in Florida, we've figured it out. We support law enforcement with everything we've got. We give them the tools to be successful. And then when they bring in the bad guys, we bring the heat, we lay down the law, and we put them away for as long as possible. We don't believe in early release, not in the state. So thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. Support the sheriff's office, and we'll keep doing everything we can to keep this state safe. Thanks. Pull this out.
Yep. Right. Thank you, General. I want to start off by thanking our law enforcement partners, Sheriff Judd and his team, the Department of Corrections, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, for their tremendous investigative work in this case, as well as our prosecutors who delivered a terrific presentation and case and were able to attain a much needed conviction. Gang prosecutions are not easy. They take coordinated effort between law enforcement and prosecution. It takes great diligence, great patience, and the higher up you go in the hierarchy, the more difficult it becomes. Defendants will oftentimes attempt to insulate themselves, which is exactly what happened here. This defendant orchestrated and directed a criminal operation to terrorize Floridians. Robberies, home invasion, burglaries, drug dealing. And this defendant, as the general state, is now facing 5 potential life sentences. The state of Florida and this community are safer for this prosecution. When the Attorney General and the Sheriff say criminals should pack it up and find another state to operate in, this isn't a talking point. They're dead serious.
Feeling lonely and looking for a significant someone, but dating sites don't work for you?
The Office of Statewide Prosecution is tracking the Attorney General's priorities, protecting children, rooting out gangs, taking out drug, human, and sex traffickers. This prosecution of a high-level gang member reflects those priorities. So if you are a gang member, a sex predator, drug trafficker, and you happen to be listening to this press conference, unless you want to spend the rest of your life in a cage, I strongly encourage you to listen to the Attorney General and the Sheriff and relocate your operations from Florida. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Attorney General, Sheriff Judd. It's an honor to be here today in Polk County Sheriff's Office. I'm Deputy Commissioner Baden Pollard with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. I have the opportunity to oversee investigations for FTLE throughout the state. I'll submit to you that our relationship in working with the Attorney General and with Sheriff Judd is phenomenal. Nobody gets after it like they do. They are hard chargers. And the special agents that worked on this case with the Polk County Sheriff's detectives, they get after it every day. When you think about the name of this gang and what their ethos is, for lack of better terms, they are right where they belong. You know, justice requires finality, and it's coming with this. And thank you, Attorney General, that your shop's going to make sure that these guys stay away for a long time. Thank you.
Good morning. So they've touched on the investigative side of this. I want to talk about the collaborative side of this. This was a long and complex investigation. We put together a really good team for this investigation. Lieutenant Gonzalez, Special Agent Watley, myself. Collaboration starts at training, believe it or not. You get to meet a lot of great folks at conferences like the one the Florida Gang Investigators Association puts on. And that collaboration and that networking carries away from the conference and finds itself at work, and it makes it easier for us during these investigations to find folks that we need to fill in the gaps of information that we find during these investigations. One great example of that is Ms. Dolan. She'll be up here in just a moment. She and I worked quite a bit during this investigation to fill in a lot of those gaps, especially when we start talking about coded communications. So my appreciation goes out to the sheriff for letting us do this investigation. It was long and complex. The Attorney General's Office of Statewide Prosecution, Gary Malik, was our prosecutor that took us to the finish line. I appreciate them all very much. Thank you.
Good morning. Christy Dolan, Florida Department of Corrections. I'd just like to emphasize the critical role of interagency collaboration. This case is a perfect example of how cooperation across different levels of law enforcement is not just beneficial, but it's essential for effectively developing complex and multi-jurisdictional investigations. Our agencies work seamlessly together, combining resources, expertise to provide vital support and critical intelligence to the investigation. The strong relationships that we forged together allowed for the rapid and effective exchange of information, which was instrumental in the progression of the case and our overall mission success. FDC remains dedicated to supporting all of our law enforcement partners across the state to keep Florida safe. Thank you.
Before we take questions, I want to highlight what Attorney General told us just a minute ago. In one of our home invasions in Eagle Lake, they pointed a gun at an 8-year-old boy and threatened him. And then they pointed the gun to the head of an infant, 3 months old, and threatened him. This is the kind of people these folks are. And as a result, I want you to look around here today. This is the entire authority and power of the state of Florida that came down on them. And make no mistake about it. If you want to abuse the people of this state, it's not just your local police department or your local sheriff's office. It's not just your prosecutor's office, but it's the Attorney General and statewide prosecution and FDLE. We all work together, and that's why we have the free state of Florida. That's why it's safe and people feel safe in Florida, because we don't put up with this. And I can tell you this, we ran through them like Sherman through Georgia, and we're on our way to run through another group of them right now. In fact, we're going to have a press release later on of another case we worked with FDLE that will really shock you. That's a teaser for the future. Any questions for the Attorney General?
Oh man, easy day. All right. Thank you guys. Well, we got one.
I have a question unrelated, but I have questions for this.
Sure.
I have one unrelated to this.
All right.
You recently sent a letter to the city of Winter Haven regarding a possible violation of the state's public camping law.
Mhm.
They had come back to you and responded that one of the main tenants they think is that all those photos and all the evidence was provided during.
This is a mechanical folding slingshot gun, not just a simple slingshot that can instantly turn you into a sharpshooter with rifle-level accuracy.
Daylight hours and people sleeping in public parks during daylight hours. Do you have a response to that?
Yeah, my response is we want to work with them to enforce the law. We passed a law recently here in Florida. Homelessness is not permitted Law enforcement has a job to do. Part of having a safe environment for families is that you don't have people sleeping in parks where children might be playing, where you don't have people that may be inebriated or suffering from mental health issues or other, dangerous, violent tendencies. We don't want them near our kids. So the letter is, it's a stern but polite call for help, enforce the law. We're certainly willing to work together with them on it. I think the sheriff will work together with them. We're happy to help them get into a more compliant posture. But at the end of the day, if we put laws on the books here in Florida, they mean nothing if we don't enforce them. So we've seen some examples of jurisdictions that I don't think have done the best job in the state. I don't think this is a lone, isolated issue here in Central Florida. But we will engage in a dialogue and hopefully bring them into compliance.
I want to ask about Hernando's. I'm looking at this screen here, and one of the first pictures you see is all the way back to 2003. A totally different time from right now. But the average person will look at that screen and say, why wasn't more done earlier to try and stop him? You see, like the crazy charges there, and someone would say, there is no way that he could have been stopped beforehand to prevent any future crimes. So what would you say to the average person looking at that long rap sheet saying, where's the enforcement been for all these years, 23 years plus?
Sure. Well, look, I don't believe in early release. What I will say is when you got gang leaders like this, a lot of the more serious, heinous crimes, as the statewide prosecutor indicated, they try to insulate themselves where they're not directly boots on the ground, running headlong into police forces. Rather, they're managing it like a business leader. They're managing it like a business crime syndicate. So it takes a little bit longer to investigate and ultimately connect the dots to hold those people accountable for the crimes that others are committing under their direction, under their coordination. So we're changing the culture here even further. I mean, Florida's been a tough on crime. We're going to get even further tough on crime, and where prosecutors don't want to be tough on crime, we're going to send them packing for a new job. Yes.
Would you consider this to be the dismantling of sex, honey, and murder, their gang, or is there more work to do on this?
Well, we've dismantled a lot of it. I don't want to definitively say, they're dead in the water, but we're still working on some other leads and investigating, and where we see violent offenders rearing their heads, we're going to hold them accountable.
Do you expect additional charges from the initial people who were arrested in 2022?
I don't have definitive answers on that, but we're willing to follow up with you offline if more comes to light.
Sheriff, has this gentleman been at large since 2022, and only now because of the wiretap situation where they're able to bring him into custody?
No, we arrested him in 2022. I don't know if he was in custody between then and his trial date or not, but he's certainly in custody now. We have the same questions that you have. People miss the opportunities to put really, really bad guys in prison along the way. And the bottom line to it is, you heard what the general said, we're over this in the state of Florida. And when you ask about dismantling, we dismantled this group. Now, will there be other people take their places? As long as there's money, as long as there's drugs, there's going to be somebody to take the risk. And when they take the risk, we're going to do the investigation and we're going to lock them up. So anytime you take away an organized crime group that's especially dealing with drugs, what you're doing is taking away another crime group's competition. And then we move on and investigate them. And we're going to be talking about some of that in the next day or two as well. But make no mistake about it. For those who continue to say that drugs are low level and nonviolent, if they speak those words, they are out of their mind, because drugs are anything other than low level and nonviolent, because it leads to shooting. It leads to putting guns to 3 months old heads. It leads to robbery, and murder. So at the end of the day, this is just a remarkable piece of work. And there's more. Some of these people have already pled and they're already in prison. Others may still be waiting trial. So this is the organization that we successfully took down. And now you're seeing the trial. This guy here should spend the rest of his life breathing jail air.
Sheriff, in 2023, you all created the violent gang.
Have you heard about Ryoko Pro? This is the cutting-edge portable Wi-Fi hotspot that people wish they found out about.
Task force, finding investigative task force.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you seen a reduction in gang activity in Polk County since the creation of that?
We absolutely have, because of our work with our city police agencies, our work with FDLE, our work with Brian Haas, who, by the way, is the best prosecutor any place on the face of the earth, and with our Attorney General and his staff. We have seen a significant reduction in gang activity. We've seen a significant reduction in home invasions, remarkably significantly. And in fact, we just celebrated in the unincorporated area and our service cities a 54-year low crime rate. So when we bring this to your attention, we want you to understand that we are focused and deadlocked on these folks that commit this kind of crime. And with the advent of our technology and our computers and our analysts, we are locked in and focused on the worst of the worst that are out here committing crimes. And if they're not in jail and prison now and facing the statewide prosecutor, or certainly the prosecutors of our state attorney, they will be.
Speaking of technology, social media plays a big role in recruitment efforts. What sort of initiatives do you have to combat that?
Yeah, it's first off, it's against the law to recruit for a gang online. So our intelligence team looks for any recruitment of gang members online. When we find that, we investigate it and we arrest them. It is against the law. And we really break the backs of the gangs every way that the law allows us to, because we know that the old way of tagging businesses, drive through Polk County, you don't see gang graffiti in Polk County. Do you know why? We don't allow it. And when it happens, we go there. Rob Mateo was one of our experts. We would see what the communication was. We would paint it out. We would follow it up. Now they've moved from tagging to online. And online, we have arrested people for that, because you can't recruit online. You can't have gang communications and recruit. You can't recruit in schools. And wherever we see it, we attack it.
Let me ask, on this July, you have that you arrested Homestead in 2024. Is that an arrest from the jails, or was there a specific circumstance that you could share with us?
I don't.
There's a June 2024 arrest here on this July of Fernando Thompson.
He was a fugitive at that time. Okay, he was a fugitive on the previous charges. Which means they must have allowed him to post bail until he came up for his court date.
And that's a problem.
And that's a problem. Yeah, I don't know who the harebrained judge was that let him out when he's facing racketeering and he's the head of an organization and he's got a violent past. If anybody should have been detained in custody until trial, it should have been him. So, you know, the bottom line is, when he's not in jail, he's out committing crime to include a violent crime.
What do you think you learned in this massive effort that you could potentially apply to future efforts of gang members?
You know, we learn every day when we deal with gangs. But what we learned is you can take down the entire infrastructure. And Rob, in addition to this, we actually took down like the head of the South Carolina gang, or what some of them. Come tell them who else we got.
Yes, sir.
outside of the head of the Florida gang of sex, money, murder. We actually got some others.
Yes, sir. One of the leaders that we took was Mr. Jonathan Fleming. He was the #1 for the state of North Carolina at the time of this investigation. He brought a contingent down for an event that they were holding here. That was part of the overall investigation.
Can I say something to her point on the early release? It's got to stop. Judges have way too much discretion where somebody can be wanted for the most violent of crimes, and yet they're still allowed to walk free on bail. We had a case up in Tallahassee where an individual was actually convicted by a jury for child sex abuse, was released awaiting sentencing, and then he ultimately killed a 5-year-old girl, murdered this girl. So we proposed legislation this year again titled Misty's Law, named after this young girl, to tie up these loopholes where judges are allowed to let these dangerous people go free. Somebody that's a child sex abuse defendant doesn't have the ability to just walk around our little kids. We can't have that. So we're trying to tighten up there. Thanks for the question. Anybody else?
What do you think?
All right.
All right. Keep in mind, when we put these people in jail, we're stopping them from carjacking your friends and your relatives. We're stopping them from doing home invasions to your friends and your relatives. This is about protecting the people of the state of Florida. And it is an honor, General, to have you as our Attorney General who recognizes there's nothing more important than the safety and security of the people of the state of Florida. And we're going to keep locking bad guys up. But hey, if you really want to commit crime unabated, there's California, New York, New Jersey, Minnesota, pick a state. All right, go there. Just get out of Florida.
We are on the brink of catastrophe. The planet only has
All right. I am going to end this stream and I am going to start another one. And to the other person, yeah, the first topic is what killed the stream, which is Epstein. Nobody cared about Epstein. No one cared about Bill Clinton. Nobody. Wait, watch. Nobody cared. They ruined the whole stream. So, yeah, I'm going to start another one. I'll see y'all. Pop back through. God bless y'all. Much love. Peace out, y'all. I don't know, man.